Well, Bishop Sycamore is finally making use of their newfound fame. This week, the brand new head coach of Bishop Sycamore just came out saying how they are officially not a school.
We do not offer curriculum. We're not a school. That's not what Bishop Sycamore is. And I think that's what the biggest misconception about us was. And it was our fault because it was a mistake on paperwork.
Now, after my last video, if you guys have not yet, make sure you guys click the iCard. I will post the video attached to this one. There's been a lot of debate with Bishop Sycamore as to are they really a school or are they not a school? Now, that kind of got me interested and started looking a little bit further into, is this public or is it chartered or is it private? I started thinking a little bit about what does Ohio constitute as non-public or chartered or private? What do they constitute that as their governing body with Bishop Sycamore in mind? You guys know anything about the state of Ohio? It's a very unique state. At least here in Columbus, there's kind of an interesting mixture of public and private schools. Now, this is kind of the case all over the state of Ohio, but typically a lot of kids would like to go to private schools, obviously, for better education, better athletic opportunities, you name it. Now, if you look, it kind of varies region by region. So say if you go, the differences between Southeast Ohio is very different from like Northeast Ohio or Central Ohio to Southwest Ohio. So, for example, if you guys look towards Cleveland, you have a lot more people tending to go, it's kind of a weird mix. You have a few people going to public schools, but there's still a good chunk of people going to private schools. Same here in Columbus a little bit, but the public school system here is very unique. A lot more money in this area, so basically kids prefer to stay in public schools. If you tend to look towards Cincinnati and those schools down there, you actually will see a huge influx of players or individuals deciding to go to private schools or Catholic schools down in that area because the public schools aren't as great. Since 1983 here in the state of Ohio, depending on what you classify yourself as, whether it's public or chartered, private, whatever the case may be, that school actually falls under different state regulations that are attached with it. From all that we know currently, Bishop Sycamore is actually registered with the state as a non-chartered academy.
That you need in order to attain that status. First, you need to be formed around truly held religious beliefs. That's the language in Ohio State Code. Now, these schools still need to send information to the state every year that shows how many hours students attend school, what they're learning while they're there, and that the building is safe and up to code. So that is what Bishop Sycamore leadership describes, among other things, in these 18 pages that they sent to ODE last year. But it didn't take long for me to find multiple discrepancies. In its paperwork filed with the Ohio Department of Education ahead of the 2020-2021 school year, Bishop Sycamore reports an enrollment of 3 students. It says those students go to class from 7:10 a.m. to 3:05 p.m. at 303 South Grant Avenue, which also happens to be Franklin University's library. I asked the university if it ever had a relationship with Bishop Sycamore. School officials did reach out to us to look into leasing space, a spokesperson told me in an email. However, no contract was ever signed. Franklin even sent this letter to school director Andre Peterson in 2020, saying it was no longer interested in having a relationship with him after learning the high school was using the Franklin address on official paperwork. The paperwork also describes a partnership with 2 organizations, Advancing Science Worldwide and the Innovation Science and Education Foundation. Advancing Science Worldwide is a small nonprofit based in Arizona. It primarily supports schools in Africa. Advancing Science Worldwide, Inc. never had any partnership with a school called Bishop Sycamore, and we never provided them any educational materials, the nonprofit's president, Rithvik Masuku, told me in an email. But his organization did have a fiscal sponsorship agreement with the Innovation Science and Education Foundation. That, Masuku said, ended after ISE didn't send in its required paperwork. Masuku sent this letter of termination to 2 addresses provided by ISC. He said the letter was returned from the first, this office building in Easton, where I found no listing for ISC or Bishop Sycamore, and the second address was this house in Blacklick. No one answered the door there. An internet search returns no results for ISC.
That part about this was, I follow a chat board and with the largest grain of salt possible, but it is called Yappy, which is basically a lot of local fans and ex-coaches, ex-players of high school football around this area that definitely follows not just this situation, but many other things, or just kind of the goings on of high school football here in the state of Ohio. It is a specific area where they've talked about COF / Bishop Sycamore for the last 1.5 to 2 years. The fact of the matter is there's been many complaints. As soon as COF popped up, there has been many complaints that have said this is not a real program, this is not a real school, this is a scam, and people are being scammed out of their eligibility as well as money for this. The state of Ohio preferred to do nothing based out of it. Now, obviously, continuation from my last video, the thing is, and I'm sure a lot of you guys were saying like, oh, what can you do? You should have done something. There's not a whole lot that I could personally do, except for tell my side of the story. But sad to see that something like this had to happen because of Sycamore losing a big game on ESPN, even though after they duped a whole bunch of different people. But because of the amount of complaints that happened within 1 week, not only that, but then I think COF Academy got involved. Now Governor DeWine, the governor of Ohio, got involved, and they are doing a internal investigation just based on this stuff alone. Sycamore is not even affiliated with the Ohio High School Athletic Association, so there's really nothing that they can do. Essentially, like I said before, it's the state that has to step in and say, all right, what's going on? We're going to do a full audit at this place and then figure out how they can attack that from a legal standpoint. But I don't think it would be too hard. Like I said, there's no campus. They literally had to write down a simple address, which ended up taking them to some random address. So within time, they will have to fold, maybe after this year, who knows. But I think once the investigation is done, it shouldn't take too long. But the issue is, the one thing that kind of concerns me is obviously this is not a hugely widespread thing, but at the same time is there has to be something put in place for these schools to stop from congregating, because what we've seen from the first time with COF Academy turn into, because they end up getting caught, they end up just breaking apart and then reforming underneath a different name. They have to stop with these reincarnations of these schools, if you want to call it that. So that's the current update about what's going on with Bishop Sycamore. It's going to be a long process to see what happens, but that's currently what's happening here in the state of Ohio. But I appreciate you guys watching, and see you guys soon.